Hi, everybody. Today's TMIT teammate is Julianne Annunziata Peters. Julianne and I actually go way back. We both grew up in Pelham, New York. Two of her older sisters actually babysat my brother and me. Julianne and I were on the swim team together. We went to the same elementary school, and her husband Tyler even roomed at NYU with one of my closest friends. But we hadn't seen each other in years until our kids happened to meet on the beach one day, and we had one of those classic small world moments. Fast forward to today, and Danielle and I feel especially lucky to call Julianne our neighbor and dear friend. We're so glad to have her here in person on the show today. Hey, Julianne.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming in person.
Yeah.
This is really great, in the flesh.
So fun and exciting.
How did you and Tyler decide on Delray?
So Tyler and I moved from New York City. So we moved just after still during in 2021 COVID in New York City, which was obviously a tough time and place to be. Our daughter, Caroline, who's now 6, had just turned 1. We felt very cooped up in our apartment and that things were changing and it was time to kind of get out. We had a friend from New York move to Delray. I had never heard of Delray. Growing up, we'd come down to Florida, Miami, Palm Beach, Boca. I knew, never heard of Delray. But immediately just sort of liked the energy. I mean, I think honestly, it felt like we'd broken out of jail a little bit coming from New York where it was so shut down, going into another winter. And here it just felt, open and free and like you said, lots of reasons to come down. You can't argue with the weather. So I think though originally Caroline was young. I mean, she I guess was not even quite 2 when we first visited, and then I think it was just 2 when we moved. So honestly, I feel like sort of a selfish adult decision at that point. I wasn't thinking about schools or necessarily, the rest of our lives or her childhood or whatever it was. I think it was a little bit, let's try this out. We feel a little stuck where we are. It's, home isn't necessarily home anymore.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? So like when you and Tyler think about staying in Delray Beach and putting down roots here, what are some of the things that really are keeping you here?
Yeah, it's a good question because it's, I think I have, the last few years, I keep waiting for that moment of, oh no, we need to be back home. And I still think I call it home, and it's a strange feeling. But the hardest thing I'd say is being away from family. Number one. I mean, I think that's that's the only thing when I think about potentially going back is just proximity to my father and my sisters, and of course we have good friends there. I think it's just there's a different energy and outlook on life here that I think is probably not particular to Pelham or New York, but sort of the Northeast in my mind, maybe elsewhere, but that's where I grew up and what I know. That life's just a grind and a struggle, and you're always just working to get to something, and especially living in New York City, you feel this. Or I certainly did, I'm in the greatest place on earth and nothing's better than this. And you're very focused on, I'm going to sacrifice on space and, all these different things, but I'm in the greatest, place on earth. I think it takes leaving there to realize, well, there's so much else out there, and it's not necessarily the greatest thing on earth. But I think people seem to just enjoy life more here, and not. Obviously, there mix of different things, but not at the expense of responsibility. But you can do both, and the reason that you work hard and put in this time is to then enjoy, that hard work, and that's something that actually Tyler sort of originally pointed out to me that didn't think of at first. I think at first it was sort of the weather's great, and we're outside a lot more, and now I definitely see that, and I think it's just. I don't know. People are happier. They don't take themselves as seriously. It's just it's been a sort of a breath of fresh air in that way.
I love that. The FAU basketball team, or maybe just FAU in general, their tagline is "Winning in Paradise."
Yeah.
And I feel like when you take New Yorkers that are really good at the grind and you put them in this space, it's actually a beautiful balance because we're not going to lose that New York City toughness, right? And like work ethic. But now when the day is done, I get to go and watch the sunset on the beach as opposed to coming home to my more cramped apartment, which is also, which was great.
Yep.
I think we all like had our 20s there and had our young kids there, but I don't think anything other than COVID would have gotten us out of Manhattan.
Right.
No.
And I'm so grateful that it did. Like I was there for 16 years.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
of course.
So I too am really grateful for the balance that, because you're never going to take the New York finance girl out of me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to.
Right.
But it's really nice to put me in this kind of paradise setting. So I really do feel like it's the best of both worlds.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree.
No, and it's so cool that we all found ourselves here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very special.
Yeah, we just we did an episode on spirit where we talked about serendipity and synchronicity. And so obviously like serendipity is a happy accident. And then there's this idea of synchronicity, which is when like the universe collides to do something that really changes your life. And I truly believe that meeting you on the beach that day was just like synchronicity in action. Hunter Ray Neufeld has never, ever gone up to another little girl and said, Mommy, I want to play with her. Like that was the one, never before and never after. And I don't even know what happened, but it was like such a wonderful, I feel like both of us were pretty new to our Delray Beach experience too. And it was like, hello, like I'm clinging everybody to her. Right? I'm like, oh my gosh, like fish out of water, kind of like. It gave me so much like validation that you all were here too.
No.
You know what I mean? I'm just so grateful because I feel like we are strangers in a strange land a little bit and navigating people and schools and cultures. It's
different.
And you and I are charting different courses, like, you know, but we can really, we have like a shared foundation, which has been such a gift, I think.
No, I couldn't agree more. It was I forgot exactly how that day unfolded, but it really was just, it happened. That's small world, but no, I feel grateful to have ended up here and to met you guys, or run into you in that way again and reconnected with you. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's 20 years apart at least, right?
Yeah.
Probably haven't seen you.
At least on my swim team.
Yeah.
Right.
I know this girl.
Yeah, those are those. Yeah, I have very fond memories of those summers and at PCC. That was a good.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for your family culture today? Because I mean, obviously, you mentioned that you have 3 sisters, and that you liked a lot about growing up. So when you think about family culture, you know, both back then and now, what really comes to mind?
So I think for me, the biggest thing is just feeling like you are part of a team and that you belong somewhere. I think that sense of being tethered to something bigger than yourself. I think when I've sort of felt the most uneasy in my life is when I feel untethered, and I think I always come back to that. And in talking of about family culture, and when I started listening to your podcast, of course, I'm thinking of creating that for my, myself and for my daughter. But I immediately think of my upbringing, and just because I have, very fond and positive memories of childhood, growing up, in a big family. And I think, one of the challenges for me now is how do I create that culture with one child that I had, with 6 of us, versus a small family of 3. But I think for me, it's looking to my parents, especially my mom, how she really created culture in our home, our traditions, the things that I looked forward to, and then how do I, make Caroline have that same, I want her to look back on her childhood and feel the way that I did. And so I think a lot of it is chasing that a bit. And of course, nothing was perfect, but, and you can fine tune things here and there, but I want her to overall come away with the same feeling I did. And I think that's the challenge for me now is, how do I do that?
Sure. What were some of the things? Like, what did it mean to be an Annunziata? What does it mean today?
Yeah. So I think it, going back to this kind of idea of a team, I think it was, definitely a sense of belonging, but with that came responsibility and some expectations. And I think it was, for my parents, they were not overly strict, but they were very traditional in their sort of views of they do well in school, have good grades. It was respect us, listen to us. Like it was somewhat of a formula, and we were expected to sort of perform to the best of our abilities. I think that for my parents, they felt like they gave us all the opportunities in the world, and we were not to squander them. And so I didn't feel an enormous amount of stress or pressure or competition. But I do think that is also related to the age gap, whereas I think the older ones growing up in the same house, really as peers at the same time, was probably, caused a little bit more pressure and angst potentially and competition, among them. But I think it was just more so do your best. You're a kid, so you don't have other responsibilities outside of school and being a good person, and do those things. And then, with that came all of the wonderful things and the joy and the, we had a lot of, just family traditions. I mean, my mom, just everything was special that she created and put on, even if it was, she cooked meals for us every single day, and we all sat down to a family dinner, which you guys have an episode on. And, it was something that I also struggle with because we don't really have that. And every holiday, everything was from special occasions to day to day, she made very, very special. So, yeah, I've started rambling and lost.
No, that's great. No, that's great. I wonder, on the one hand, I feel like you are so lucky and fortunate to have that. How does it feel as an adult? Like, do you feel pressure to do that? Not that you should. I'm
Right.
just wondering if you do.
Yes and no. I think I think it's more so that I put the pressure on myself. I really want to have that, and I think so much. My mom passed away 10 years in February. And I think, all the more it feels like trying to continue or recreate sort of that legacy and that, who she was. And I think a lot of, I know a lot of what I certainly model myself after is her, but my relationship with her, to me, was, the most special in my life. And I think a lot of what I'm attempting to do is sort of recreate that with Caroline now, which obviously it's not exact. And we personality wise, we're all different. So, we're navigating that. But I think it's more so a pressure. I wouldn't even call it that, because I think it has somewhat of a negative connotation. It's just something that I really want to do for myself. And then I hope Caroline takes away and feels that bond, that I feel with her, of course, but felt with my mom as well. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
These Pelham moms in the 80s and 90s, I tell you, they like, say what you will about their kids and all of the kids that we were surrounded with. There's probably just a great normalized distribution of good and bad, but there was something special about the moms in that town. I think that you could have just described my mom talking about the holidays, talking about dinner every night, making it special. Like, how did you know in the moment that was a good thing to celebrate as opposed to run away from? Because I pushed against that a lot.
I don't know. I think I've just started thinking about all of these things now. Really from listening to your podcast, it's been nice to reflect. But I credit my parents, and I think my older siblings definitely helped create and shape that culture too. And I don't know. It always felt. I always looked forward to it. It was always fun. And we had, of course, friends and different activities that we were involved in. But for me, I don't know. I was always more of a homebody, I think, and I would come back to that as first choice. And so, yeah, I don't know exactly what it was. But I still, going into my dad's house, I get that feeling of being a child again, like on Christmas morning. Like I can still feel it somehow, and it's just, I credit my parents with creating that. Yeah, I don't know exactly. 4 times over. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and so
Amazing.
maybe by the time they got to me, they had it down.
Oh
So
boy,
maybe there was some, yeah.
we need to have another one
No.
in a year or two. No.
Uh,
Speaking of that house and going back to that house,
Yeah.
your dad is moving, right?
Yes,
And
yeah.
you are going in a couple of days
Yes.
for your final.
Yes, my
time
final
in that
stay at the
house.
house. I know. It's going to be emotional. I haven't, there was a period of time in high school where if my parents mentioned selling the house, I would just burst into tears and I'm not there right now. But I always thought, I think part of this, I'll end up in Pelham and I will end up in that house. And I wanted to somehow exactly recreate what the experience I had. And again, that's shifted. And so I don't have that, feeling of missing out on that. I feel like I'm where I should be, but the nostalgia factor, and I am not good with change. I get I know I'm going to be okay, but going through it is stressful for me. So, it's been, I think a while coming. I'm surprised he actually stayed in the house as long as he did. But I'm thankful to have this one sort of last hurrah, and also just have been able to when we transitioned to living here, have that as a home base. Still, I think it made the move that much kind of easier to do. Probably much to the chagrin of my father, who did not want us to go, but it felt like I always had a place to go back to, and I'm sure we'll find that, elsewhere. And I feel very comfortable in my sister's homes and whatever else. But it made that easy to feel like I'm going back to this place that has meant everything to me. I spent my entire life in, and it's always there for us. So I think, packing it up in a couple of weeks is going to be traumatic. But I'm very lucky. I'm grateful that it worked out this way, because it's under contract, but I wasn't sure if we were going to even able to come back to it, because he put it on, the market in the spring, but we're in a good spot where, we'll get to stay. And I think for me, I try to tell myself, especially, my mom is not in the house anymore. It's, it's the memories, it's the feelings. Yes, the house does that for me, but it's not the house that did it.
yeah. Is there anything from the house that you can bring down to Florida?
Well, my dad is just basically, if you guys want anything from the house, he will give you anything that is not like nailed down to the ground. He is just trying to in purge mode. But there's nothing major. I mean, so my mom again was, a fantastic cook, hostess. She just, everything was special and nice, and she had so many like serving dishes and things that just remind me of holidays in particular, but just and any kind of family dinner get together. And there's a few of those items that I'd like to have. It makes me feel close to her. I mean, one of our traditions that I like to attempt to continue on with Caroline is cooking together. We used to make, cookies for Christmas, or, bake X, Y, and Z. And so, having something like that, actually she has a very old fashioned file box of recipes, handwritten, that's 100% the thing I'm taking.
Amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, no rhyme or reason. I think there's like the alphabetized tabs, but everything is just, thrown in there. So, that I will take with me. The rest, it's stuff. They have a lot of nice stuff, but I'm starting anew.
Yeah. Speaking of starting anew, what are some of the traditions that you and your sisters want to carry on? You all have your own families, but
Yeah.
I imagine you're pretty intentional about seeing one another and staying in touch. How do you make sure what's the forcing function? What's the holiday? Like, what do you guys do
Yeah.
to make it stick?
That I think is a huge thing that, without explicitly saying it, my mom always wanted us to maintain, being close. And she set that, definitely set the stage for that. And I think, again, without even necessarily talking about it, we also, we feel the same way that, I mean, we want to spend that time together, but I think it's also sort of an ode to her as well, that we keep, that we, maintain those traditions. So one of the things when I was first moving, as I said, I promise I will come back for every holiday, because that was always a very special time for us. And we have figured out, and now, certain in-laws come for certain holidays and not others. But kind of the big ones in our family, we're all together. And my sister, Michelle, has taken over hosting duties for the most part. And we actually there's another family from town. My parents and this family, the parents of that family, started this Christmas Eve tradition in, I don't know, probably the 70s. And now we still have that. The party has dwindled. It's it's gotten much smaller. But there's one family in particular that still comes over to Michelle's house on Christmas Eve, and it's the parents, then the next generation. Now they all have children, and so it's it feels like we're recreating that in a very special way.
Absolutely, it really is. I mean, we had, just like you mentioned, a tradition with neighbors on Christmas Eve, party at our house, but all the neighbors and all their family and friends were welcome. And I grew up in a family where my cousins on both sides not just knew each other, but saw each other very regularly as a result of that forcing function of getting everyone together. Sounds like, as you described when you mentioned the in-laws coming, like that's kind of a special, not so common thing.
Right. A good point. I didn't think about it that way. And I think part of it is if we are four opinionated women who say we are maintaining this Christmas Eve tradition. But there is definitely, I think, I think it's palpable to the others that this is fun and this is meaningful. And I don't think anybody complains about doing it. I think it's become a tradition that has grown, and that we love adding new people to the mix. So that is that is very special.
It's great that you can maintain that bond and also live your own and chart your own life down here.
Yeah, and
really
I think
cool.
that's been a good. I think it's been a good balance for me. And I one of the things as the youngest, I don't know if that's related or not, but there were times, speaking of family dynamics, that I felt overly involved in other people's lives and sort of the peacekeeper to some degree. And this has been sort of a great change because I get a little bit of distance from that, but still maintain, the closeness and all of the positivity. But it's it's definitely nice to have your own space and life and focus on that.
Totally.
Crazy tangent, but I just wanted to say, the episode on family stories I really loved, and it made me think of how much of a storyteller, particularly my dad, but my parents are and were, and I'd never really thought about it until you brought it up. But I think that was sort of exactly how they taught us all of our values and what was sort of expected of us and the opportunities given to us. Because I think, for them, they were both kids of, immigrants who came here and had nothing and then created this life, for themselves and for us. And I never really took a step back to think about that. But I have the same story of, my grandfather coming here and everything he accomplished. And I think we all probably at some point wrote some paper about him in the school and whatever else. And it's just so much of my childhood, through now is storytelling and hearing about, the struggles and the feats of those, people that came before me. So I thought that was, I think that's a really great thing. And I'm trying to, I've certainly repeated the stories I've heard, and I'm hoping that we can come up with some new ones and have our own experiences. But I think storytelling is a great is a huge part for anyway for me and our family culture growing up.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
That's a great notice.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling that out.
Of course.
Cool. Well, Mr. Annunziata, we need some tips on how to incorporate story into our family. Was that around the dinner table? Was that just like when you're brushing your teeth, you'd just be like, "Hey, did I ever tell you about the time?"
Yes, a lot of times around the table, which we spent a lot of times in an Italian family around the dinner table. Eating is a huge part of our lives. Really in a lot of, also my father's a dentist, and so he is like king of like, you're a captive audience right now, can't talk.
It just struck me as to why he's a good storyteller. I was like, oh my God.
He has to fill the silence. But it's that, talk about like overcompensating. Now my mom used to always say, like, he was so quiet when I met him. I took him out of a shell and now I cannot get him back in. And he just he ran with it. So now he likes, still, even though you're just at the dinner table, would prefer you to be a captive audience and not opine on what he just likes to preach, I think. But no, he's a fantastic storyteller and has had an amazing life, and everything he created for us is amazing. But I will say, how to incorporate it: repeat the same stories over and over and over. I mean, Dad, you told us this. Well, let me just tell you again. Probably frequently embellished. I don't know, but it worked. Whatever it was.
Amazing.
I love that.
Next time he's down in Florida, I'd love to take him to dinner. And
don't be careful what
tips.
you wish for. Yes.
Well, yeah. we're a few like 1,500 miles away. So
That's right.
I think
right.
We're okay.
I
think we're safe.
Probably safe.
Yeah. This is great. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
So
Yeah,
much.
we love
Yes.
this.
Thanks everybody for listening.
Hope you have a
This
great
was
summer. You
Yes.
and Tyler and Caroline have an awesome time up north.
Thank you.
We'll see you when you get back. And excited to show Caroline, her mom, on the pod.
Oh yes, I didn't tell her.
Love it.
She's not gonna know what's going on.
She was turning on in the car.
Why is anyone listening to you?
And we get this.
Thank you guys so much for having me, and keep
you.
up the good work. It's really impressive and amazing what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
It's been eye-opening for me. It made me think about so many different things. So it's great.
Oh, thank you, Julia. That means a lot. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.